How's it going, everybody? I'm Burrhead here. Welcome to Pikmin 2 Prerelease and Unused content. Next up, the Beast. The thing that I've mentioned this entire time. It's time to finally tackle the final game and all the stuff contained within. This is definitely a monstrous task, but start chipping away somewhere, and we're better than unused text. If you thought the kiosk demo was bad, you'd be correct. The final game was plenty of unused text to call its own. It was not as bad as the kiosk demo. Let's try and do it in the same order. Why? Because, why not? Slight specification here, though. Apparently this found the Japanese version appears to be a more direct translation of Japanese text to English. But there does seem to be an issue, though. I can't actually find any of the early versions of Olimar's journal, so there must not be any then. On to the sales pitches. Humanoid desire knows no limits. Some things can never be helped. No research, no matter how supreme, will someday tire of consuming this thing, and yet it contains a mystic flavor born out of the cosmos itself. This legendary dessert seems to change its flavor as it is eaten. There are countless electromagnetic waves you cannot see circling the area around you. Here, there, everywhere. This is your picks up poisonous electromagnetic waves from outer space. Strange. My parts are syncopating to the rhythm. Doo-dee-doo-dee-doo. This device was designed based on the principle of stable ontology, is able to hold anything firmly in place. With this, not galactic typhoons are no longer to be feared. This creature holds the greatest concentration of knowledge in all the known universe. However, due to its naive personality, it pretends to be a mere pebble. For a being with the highest level of intelligence in the known universe, this creature contains a galactic-sized helping of love. But, due to its shyness, it will not speak of that love. Another of the universe's most intelligent beings, this creature's entire existence from the very birth to ultimate collapse of the universe is dedicated to devising a very special joke. And that's that. Don't get your hopes up, though. That's the sort of section. Louis' notes won't be quite as kind. Plump round ones are best bit roasted whole. Also make good steak. Plump round ones are best bit roasted whole. Also make good steak. When roasted, this gives the most unappeasing to the eye, and thus is best removed beforehand. Delicious in soups and stews. Excellent when boiled and served with salad. When cooked, its color is unpleasant, so it should not be used as a colorizer. Its skin is quite tough, so remove it prior to cooking. Yeah, but how do you cook it? That's why I'm here. It's why I'm here to know how to cook this darn thing. I want to know how to cook spotty bull bears, darn it. Tell me how to do it. Remove the intestines and other innards, stuffed with fresh herbs and greens, then broil in the oven until well cooked. See? That's how you do it. That's how you tell me how to cook things. Louis. This creature offers little meat, but its eyeballs are quite delectable and can even be eaten raw. Delicious deep fried after removing all the wax. The eyeballs are particularly delicious. Deep frying without batter produces a delicate flavor. When eating raw, choose only the freshest specimens and be wary of parasites. Deep fry in beer batter. The faint flavor of savory leaf is quite exquisite. Can be eaten raw, but is also quite a good boiled with turnips. Tenderize meat with a rolling pin and serve raw. Season with ginger to taste. Carefully remove all sand, peel back exoskeleton, and slurp heartily. Also tasty fried. Deep fry the skin until crispy and serve salted with dip. Sun dry, then broil for a great afternoon snack. Best sauteed together with pellet pussy sprouts. Bake in foil, but only the tender pellet inside basted naturally with the intestinal fluids. These are quite scarce and highly praised, thus sell at a high price. So, boil scentless legs with just a pinch of salt until tender, then separate the meat and soak with butter, salt, and pepper to taste. Saute it lightly. This flesh has highest oil content and thus particularly flavorful just prior to laying its eggs. Best sauteed in a frying pan together with raptor talons. That makes sense. Wait until molting, then boil the so-called soft shell portion and season. It's surprisingly delicious, except for the wings. Leave the shell on and boil with a pinch of sauce, then serve hot with tartar sauce. Saute with butter and white wine for a truly gourmet meal. Gradually drain its electrical charge and roast over an open flame. Even while still charged, if possible, produces a tingling sensation. Flash fry in a frying pan and sprinkle grated cheese on top. Remove the legs in advance for those who find them unappealing. The smaller ones are quite good dipped in beer batter and deep fried. Poke a hole in the belly of a fresh one and suck out its contents. It is robustly nourishing. After removing the wings, fry it. It goes splendidly with lemon juice. Blend it up, shell it all in a blender, and form into meatballs. Use in stews and sauces. Boil until the shell peels off, then fry. Sun dry everything with salad or other fresh greens. The odor can be off-putting, so wash it thoroughly with water, then dry it in the sun. If left too long, this will spontaneously combust, so prepare to eat soon after hunting. Fry until crispy, sprinkle with lemon juice, then serve. Due to its high water content, this has a much more subtle flavor than other varieties, so it's best served with ample salt. Regardless of temperature, he has not seen to rid this of its gaseous deposits, so it is best not to eat this. Apart from the legs, this creature is too watery and gelatinous and is not suited for cooking. It's fine to cook the legs and dispose of the rest. This is best ground up into a patty and fired on a grill over an open flame. Cover with breadcrumbs and deep fry. This plant smells far too weedy, is unfortunately not suitable for salads. This spicy flower does not go well with salads. This is far too acidic for use in cooking. With oil sometimes called the butter of the woods, eating this plant leaves the tummy feeling thick with grease, and thus not recommended for salads. This flower does not keep well, spoiling very quickly, making it unsuitable for cooking. Eating this plant raw leads to loosening of the bowels, so it's not recommended for cooking. Toss the flowers and stem, slice the bulb, and serve fresh with salad. Generally used only as a garnish, they have a decidedly pleasant woodsy flavor when steamed delicately. There is little meat on these, but the wings are surprisingly tasty, particularly with a sweet glaze. Suck the eggs through a straw for a very balanced, if slightly unappealing meal. Rots almost immediately, so if one is caught, she boils on the spot. Keeps up to 3 days. This is hard and difficult to season, for the trouble required is not particularly tasty. However, it is most nutritious and thus holds promise of future experimentation in the kitchen. The flavor of this meal is significantly when added to soup. Is that a good thing? Remarkably delicious, fresh, boiled, broiled, or sautéed, this mung was likely to experience a sharp rise in popularity. Inedible. Inedible. Use young leaves only in salads or as seasoning. Use the flower as a garnish. Dried, roasted, and ground up, the roots of this plant make suitable coffee substitute. Remove and discard primitive scale-like leaves, then boil. Inedible. Inedible. It's... wait for it. Inedible. Peel off the unopened leaves and boil in a rich broth. Inedible. The ovaries, flavored with just a hint of salt, are an incredible delicacy. Everyone should appreciate this flavor at least once. Based with a savory sauce to cook on a skewer over an open flame. Danger! Do not eat! Using the tongue as a stew base is most exquisite. More meat than a common bread bug, but even less flavor. Bathe this fine meat, bathe in a basting with its own juices while roasting slowly. Separate the juices, thicken into a gravy, then pour over and serve with stuffing. This is pretty much just machinery. The oil isn't too bad though. The gills are best prepared deep fried in a beer batter. It's also tasty served in a peanut sauce. Neither boiling nor baking seems to diminish the musty scent of this thing. It should not have been eaten. Raw or cooked, the legs of this are quite tasty. Season to taste. And that's that. That happened to be the longest section, by the way. Moving from the sales pitches to Louis' notes really shows the duality of Pikmin 2 unused content. So for Olimar's notes, which I'll be putting here because the duality thing. Let's start with common scientific names and scientific families. The red bulbor's early scientific name is Oculus Kageyami SSP Red, as the dwarf red bulbor's is Pansartus Sudoculi Red. The spotty bulbor's is Oculus Terribilis. That was a misspelling his family name, calling it the Grobu Dog family. The fiery bulblax's early scientific name is Oculus Volcano. The water bulldog's early common name is Spitty Blowhog. The image bulblax's early entries don't capitalize the G in Grubdog and calls it the Queen Bulborb. That, including the occasional misspelling, is just some simple frilly stuff. I just want to get the stuff out of the way for the real meat and potatoes. You know, the actual entries. This large organism, animals and cranial morphology of the Grubdog family, wears the characteristic bulging eyes. As with most Grubdogs, the cranium comprises half the organism's length and girth. Showing a scarlet abdomen with white spots, this creature primarily nocturnal, choosing prey smaller creatures returning to their nests. Subspecies of different colors have recently been discovered, and academics displayed numerous schools of handheld treatment of them. Initially identified as a juvenile red bulborb, recently reached places this creature in the bread bug. A close relative of the vanilla bread bug, escapes predation by bulbarbs through mimicry. Unique adaptation, the red bulbor's crimson coloration allows species to commingle. Such effective adaptation by a prey species is rare, making this a cleverly skillful mimic. A mid-sized subspecies in the grubdog family was some other grubdogs, when they adopt the passive names of typical grubdogs, and only with almost into its limited territorial range, the bulbar appears to regularly will set track and search for food. When entering bulbar habitat, it's wise to proceed with extreme caution as the bulbar's patrol path can be identified. I know we didn't do so good in the first part, but I did like so many takes for that, and that's probably the best it's ever going to sound, so we can deal with it. A grubdog larva is third stage development, its body structure during maturation. However, like mature bulbars, it becomes unmature and thus dependent and still follows its parent. As its name implies, this is bulbar's early stage of development. Its distinct bulbar coloration seems to appear, but only boasts other bulbar characteristics and is capable of acquiring nourishment independently. Bodily excretions of highly flammable wax-like substance interact with the cell structure of the grubdog's skin, causing a chemical reaction that produces extremely high temperatures. The skin benefits from sponge-like cell structure that diffuses the surface heat, protecting the inner organs. Due to the remarkable flames and heat produced by this beast, it cautions needed in handling it. A resident of tide pools and marshes, this creature feeds the insects that fall into the water. It is a close relative of the bulborb with a skeletal structure of a terrestrial cousin nearly wholly intact, often close to familial origins actually only recently emigrated to the waterways. This creature expels from its snout a phosphorus compound that combusts upon contact with the air. This fire breathing is dependent on the air-to-fuel ratio of the mouth, the catalyst reaction of the expelled compound, and purification of the compound. Thus, it's highly unlikely such a complex process will cause the spontaneous combustion of a fallen blowhog. This process also perhaps avoid the risk of spontaneous combustion in the blood of a large specimen. However, one should treat a fire blowhog with great care, even after life functions have ceased. A variant subspecies of the fire blowhog, the spade blowhog lacks some of the G sensei producing the catalyst needed to produce fire, and thus merely spits out the basic liquid produced cell prior to being transformed into a catalyzer. It is a variant that has appeared only recently, but the hereditary traits of this variant appear dominant, and thus the present subspecies is rapidly increasing its numbers. Until Pikmin 3. This species of blowhog uses internally generated hydrogen to inflate a flotation bladder and hover above the ground. The creature's electrolyzed pulse creates a sash of fluid that flows along the surface of its body, making it a particularly beautiful blowhog specimen. Precisely how it's able to internally stable its highly explosive hydrogen simultaneously generate electricity remains a mystery. The puffy blowhog blows falling and grasped by the insects underneath. It maintains a mid-air balance with both of its fins and releasing air through the holes in the creature's sides and will float effortlessly even in gentle breezes. In times of danger, it can release its flotation bladder for instantaneous escape from trouble. While at close relative of the puffy blowhog, its breath is significantly weaker, but does contain petal-withering ethylene-like plant hormone causing all flowers that come into contact with its breath to immediately lose their petals. Although its breath has not been studied in detail, analysis of the chemical compounds evolved to a great pulse with the biotechnology sector. Initial observations place down the capability of the grubdog family to support a strong ant or bee-like social structure, but recent studies show the family is capable of such complexity. With the egg sac for the largest female grubdog within a given branch displaying dramatic proportions in response to environmental changes, such as sudden depletion of prey species. These females temporarily take on the role of pack matriarch. Also, upon pack formation, it's been observed that nearly all males not involved in species reproduction undergo natural sex changes. The characteristics of specimens are quite intriguing indeed. The largest member of the grub dog family, the emperor bullblacks are only found poised burrowed deep into the ground. Such camouflage allows the creature to surprise smaller creatures that pass by and prey upon them with its long adhesive tongue. Its hide's quite thick and angular at the hump with a rock-like quality. When the rainy season comes spurring the growth of moss, it's nearly impossible to distinguish this beast back from any garden variety of stone. You know, I just realized I did lose notes before this. I suppose I could move it around, but I did write some context-sensitive stuff, and it'd be extra work, and plus, who cares that's out of order? Evidently not me. So out of that would come cutscene text, I believe. There's no mail this time. To start, the return of the illustrious formatting change. After that, in the end, Count Olimar escaped. He returned home. Thanks to you, our company's been saved! What? There's still more treasure? He's not here! I will go! This line gained an extra question mark. Louis? Are you dying? No! He appears only to have fainted. He's always running into trouble in fainting. Instruct the Pikmin to carry him. There's not enough room for him in the cockpit. We'll have to keep him in the cargo hold with the treasure. I can't shake the feeling that I've heard some of this stuff before. You have found a suspicious object. My analysis suggests it's the key to the next floor. And yet, this shape. Have I not seen it before? Clearly I must be mistaken. Let's do menu text next. I just want to get this stuff out of the way. First, it changes the file select. And then the world map, which changes the pause menu text. There is some for the Cave Engines menu as well. This changes the delve deeper message, and this changes for the give up and leave message. It certainly is a rather interesting one. Here's a few very exciting changes for the saving messages. The cave results, today's report, the final results, the return to planet message, some challenge mode changes, and this change to the two-player battle rules menu. Now for the names. I'm going to start with the treasures. Ugly Duck and Rubber Ugly, so I have jump at a core launcher, great pastry world confection hoop, crystallized rachel omniscient sphere, crystal love to love sphere, crystallized life to the mirth, sphere, super fixed streak, super strong stabilizer, poison wave saver, space wave receiver, diet killer to diet doomer, insect snack to bug bait, milk bath to milk tub, roll dime to regal diamond, space get to wiggle noggin, omega boost to make a flywheel, spill sculpt to glee, spin a shock room to anticut fungus, crystal creature male to crystal king, pitch fight ursa to fossilize earth stay, tree going to conference spire, prehistoric fossil, colossal fossil, couple awakened to invigorator, pitch level to mood element, red overkill pink menace, ice heart to frosty bobble, fossilized life form male summerald, gemstar husband, fossilized life form female summerald, gemstar wife, sleep zone universal calm, treasure wonder to unspeakable wonder, broken time machine, temporal mechanism, futurist orb to future orb, negative ion converter, shock therapist, chemical weapon to comedy bomb, magic disc to mystical disc, gold saucer football players, pistol fundament, essence to love, mind to love to essence to desire, push mucus, toxic toastal, growth from devotion, spirit computer, download to view, good community network main brain. Repair maniac to repair juggernaut, sick into exhaust super stick, sleep cookie to imperative cookie, wolf cookie to compel cookie, rock cookie to impenetrable cookie, boss to corpulent dutch, link crystal close clairvoyance, it's kinda hard to say, eternal emerald eye, digital lamp to dare time, double spells to boss alert, love and courage reactor, courage reactor, child memory to remember old buddy, swell show scrum to shell, proof to memorial shell, until work spirit flogger, and finally, cavity companion to enamel buster. Let's move from treasures to equipment names. Slay guard to scorch guard, plug megaphone to plugaphone, dash booster, rush boots, pick up to treasure gauge, mega speaker to mega tweeter, sphere wrap to spherical atlas, explosion map to x-ray chart, and enter electrocutionizer to enter electrifier. But the most interesting change was treasure antenna to knapsack. The treasure antenna was renamed the sulky antenna. Its model was stored in the file Reta _ beta SES. It was eventually cut off to another file for some reason or another, but the reason is exactly important here, and the 5 knapsack filled the empty file. From what I could tell, that's exactly what happened. It could have happened in a different order, but the order is exactly important here either. Some enemies got renamed too. Spade blowhog to watery blowhog, giant flint beetle to iridescent glint beetle, fuzzy whisker pillar to ravenous whisker pillar, egg to matite, and a stick weevil to caustic weevil, which means the exact same thing. 3 of the 4 areas were renamed: Force of Awakening to Awakening Wood, the Perplexing Spring to Perplexing Pool, and Land of Promise to Wistful Wild. On the subject of very short things, 2 of the 2-player battle stages were renamed: the Colosseum to Colosseum, and the Plains to Carpet Plain. As for challenge mode, Cave Exploration Explorer's Cave, Hole of Dreams to Brawny Abyss, Maze to Concrete Maze, Toy Box to Vast Lost Toy Box, the Special to Twilight Garden, Level Cave to Cavernous Abyss, Cave Secret to Crypto Cavern, Cave of Hastings to Red Chasm, the Secret Garden to Hidden Garden, Trample Cavern to Trample Cavern, Cave of Growth to Breeding Ground, Underground House to Hot House, the Green Hole to Green Hole, Firewire Training to Hazard Training, Tricolor Training to 3-color Training, Newcomers Training to Novice Training, Wrestle Libations. Hey, it's that name again. To Snack Pit, Cave Tunnels to Bullied, Abduction Cave to Abduction Den, Subterranean Guard to Subterranean Lair, Dogford Cavern to Cave of Pain, and Cave of Rumblings to Rumbling Grotto. But I saved the most interesting changes for last. Cave name changes. Cave of Emergence to Emergence Cave, a pretty no-nonsense change. But then, the Purple Hothouse to White Flower Garden. Purple Pikmin on day 3 sounds kinda strange. A common thing among these changes is that they often have some pretty cool sounding names, like, for example, Well of Waves to Citadel Spiders. The Citadel Spiders doesn't have any water hazards, making the name not make any sense. Of course, talking about early names here, and play stuff probably happened because of likely retheming and name change. It's my personal theory that Cave might be visited much later on. If you remember from way back, I mentioned those wings to Perplexing Pool for an early landing site. If starting from there, Citadel Spiders will be harder to reach, and you might even have blue Pikmin at that point. In fact, all the Perplexing Pool cases have some pretty interesting changes. The Submarine Castle to Glutton's Kitchen, another name and another location, probably for the Submerged Castle. Garden of White Flowers to Shower Room. The developers must have gotten somewhat trigger happy with the new Pikmin types and decided to introduce them earlier. Palace of the Queen to Bulblack's Kingdom. I'll let you figure out exactly what this change means. The Snagrit's Nest to Snagrit Hole. They both mean the same thing, but the only name's a bit cooler. For the last perplexing pool cave, look up Ruined Submerged Castle. Given Submerged Castle location, I said the name makes sense, and it's also a very cool name. Shame they cut it. There's Den of Chaos and Hole of the Heroes. I'll let you figure out exactly what they turned into. And finally, Cave of the Deep Dark to Dream Den. That's a very ominous and dramatic name, isn't it? That covers the early English text from the Japanese disc, but that's not the end of the unused text. There's testing and debug stuff, and even developer comments. In the realm of developer comments, I don't actually know what they are. I only know of two currently, only one of them actually relates to what I'm talking about right now. A comment left in the Burrowing Snagwit in the Valley of Repellers more or less translates to Burrowing Snagwit filled with treasure, meaning the pink minerals was likely held inside of it at one point. Next, let's move on to test messages. Or they could be debug messages for all I know. Test message 9995. Test message 9996. Under construction, ID 9999. This message was moved, ID 1005. This message was moved, ID 1006. Test area, ID 8894. Test area, ID 8894_01. Test area, ID 8894_02. Test area, ID 8894_03. A quick prime function of the lazy, Dumbadeo, which means don't do that, and most equals mouse on cars, and this last one, which I probably can't say out loud. There's some strange, very non-specific entries for the treasure hoard in Piklopedia. A hard, shiny rock, highly valuable, makes an excellent gift. Stretches like to look for prey, when it finds Pikmin and gobbles them up instead of chasing them. There's two messages that will be displayed on the treasure collected screen, one for above ground treasures, it's been added to your treasure log, and one for treasures found in a cave. You can't log the treasure until you reach the surface. It would seem to suggest you could read the treasure hoard, and probably the Piklopedia too, without needing to be on the world map. But I have evidence to back that up, and in addition, I just made that theory. There's used in text of unused cutscenes. First, I'll unlock the two unused onion boot cutscenes. We'll see these later. Probably. The yellow onion has awakened. You should plug the seeds of release as soon as they sprout. The blue onion has awakened. Plug the seeds of release as soon as they sprout. No equivalent text exists for the red onion. Strangely though, the text has to plug the seeds the onion releases, yet the blue and yellow onions don't produce seeds when discovered. Next, text with the onion's camera tutorial. We'll also see this later. Maybe. What are your thoughts, Captain Olimar? Has this planet changed since your first visit? I'm certain discoveries you missed before with detection by more experienced eyes. I would suggest you place your surroundings carefully. For safety's sake, I should review camera controls with you. First, face forward, press L. To rotate the camera, slide to press L and move the camera's analog stick. Next, if you want to zoom the camera, press R. Press R repeatedly to go through 3 levels of zoom. Finally, to adjust camera angles, press D, which is above R. Press D repeatedly to switch between the 2 different angles. That's my entire explanation. Olimar, you look bored. Louis, you look confused. If you fail to learn these basic skills, you will never survive in the cutthroat corporate world. And finally, the text or dialogue, or whatever you want to call it, for cutscene related to suit damage. Your spacesuit has sustained damage. Excessive damage to spacesuit can be life-threatening. If you sustain too much damage, I'm afraid the disk operations will end immediately. I have no suit repair facilities, so you must pay your suit yourself at the end of each day. This piece of power is the very case of bottom left. Pay close attention to it. Then there's this thing from Piklopedia, which, no matter how much I look at it, I will never understand what it's saying. But maybe I'm just having a very good candidate for the world's largest brain fart. And to finally cap off unused text until the end of time, probably, an unused Dutch translation. It only has a small part of the options being translated along with a quick brown fox message. And that's it. I mean, I don't have the text, but apparently it does exist. You're probably wondering exactly what will come after unused text. What could possibly top such a monstrous beast? To top text might be too much to ask for, but I've got a pretty good contender lined up. All of the unused content related to caves. Let's start this mini journey off with unused floor layouts. I'm not going to bother narrating these because there's really nothing to mention about them. Maybe except for one explanation. Rooms. Well, that and the only thing I'd show you are red images of floors. But what exactly is a room? Rooms are cave units that are larger than typical 1x1 hallways, branching paths, and dead ends. These usually make up the large amount of playable space on a given floor, and they're where most objects are placed. Speaking of objects, the floors I'm about to show you, or the red images of the floors themselves, use the minimum amount of rooms necessary to place all the random objects. Have fun! This layout is the only one in the game to use 6 rooms. This layout is the largest in the game at 7 rooms, and it's also the only one to use that amount. So for something only marginally more exciting, environment testing caves. The first is what's known as cave info _conk. This cave is by far the best amount of enemies in any of these testing caves. These caves are a bit weird though. They're typically all 5 levels long, but they're all exactly the same, save for different lighting file. The lighting files are usually part of a series if the file names are to be believed. I want to briefly mention the formatting of what you're seeing. Let me explain it. Each sublevel has a list of things it needs to spawn, and usually has a predetermined list of enemies with a predetermined chance of spawning. There's also a predetermined minimum of each enemy. After the minimum of each enemy is spawned, the game randomly chooses from the list. After that, because cave info _Europa, it's only with this cave to have only 2 sublevels. The second one also uses an otherwise unused lighting file. Next is cave info _toy. This testing cave uses its entirely some otherwise unused lighting. The second sublevel, oddly enough, uses a slightly different list of enemies and objects, placing dual sublevel 4 2 extra random enemies from the list. The remaining sublevels use this list as well. And lastly, cave info _sushi, or however you pronounce that. The most interesting and really only interesting thing about this cave is that everything past the first level uses no objects. The rest of these caves probably went for environment testing. They're probably testing other things, like dam _cave _metal. Each might be for testing bosses and man-legs different arenas. The first levels have man-legs fight like normal, but the third have right with raging long legs and then Titan Weevil on the fourth. Unless the Titan Weevil cutscene's already been seen, the game will crash. There's a similar thing with dam _cave _sushi, so only one sublevel long, but players will fight the Titan Weevil in Apis arena. Just like last time, the game will crash, the cutscene has already been seen. Next is a cave whose name I can't pronounce, if it even is named the cave. Anyway, this cave starts with simple bread bug testing. So bread bugs quite a few sugar and sunseed berries. The cave is in level 2, also with bread bug testing. The 4 bread bugs get turned into giant bread bugs. Here's another doozy of an unpronounceable name. This cave is 1 sublevel long and is designed to test body bull bears. Those horrid creatures. Palm _floor. It seems to be testing both the green kind of bud and the eggs. It also has honey wisps. There's quite a bit of funny stuff related to challenge mode. I hope you like boring things. But then again, if you've gotten this far, you probably do. Let's get the most interesting stuff out of the way first. The first one here is an early version Explorer's Cave. We're looking at the stuff on screen, one makes small clarification. If you see treasure named square brackets, that treasure will have the enemy above it. Just so you know. After that comes novice training, and it's a bit more interesting than last time, but unused challenge mode stuff can only be so interesting. Actually though, this cave is one of the challenge mode cave scenes in Prerelease footage that I talked about. It's all coming together. This version of Lost Toy Box can also be seen in Prerelease footage, which I also talked about. I was correct. It was the Lost Toy Box. Now that we hit Kriya's garden, you might as well the formatting has changed. Well, I've not hit the less interesting changes. I'll just the editing continue to do its thing. After that, Siege _Miyuki Udakera. The Siege prefix denotes case for challenge mode. Udakera, on the other hand, is one of the 2 internal names of Titan Weevil, the other being Big Treasure. So with a name like that, you could correctly assume this case has something to do with challenge mode and then Titan Weevil. I'll admit that outside of the file name and general observations, the case doesn't have much with challenge mode. But onto the cave itself. The first level is a standard no-nonsense fight with a Titan Weevil, except it drops the key. The second level is also the last one, has another fight with the Titan Weevil except in Empress Bulbax's arena. Siege _ Mewtwo _ Queen is similarly and equally lacking nonsense. It's a one-level cave with a fight with Empress Bulbax, who drops the key when killed. There are 2 more keys that are related to challenge mode, if they're finally to be believed. Challenge _1 is up first. It's 15 floors of, well, a whole lot of stuff. Apparently, though, everything at the 5th level is just a duplicate. Duplicate of what exactly? I wish I could tell you. Challenge _2 is a bit more normal, if you can even call it that. There's only 5 sub-levels this time. I'm going to place Cave Info _ Queen and Cave Info _ King here, because I am not entirely sure what these caves are for. I think it could be for testing, but oh well, the order in which I do these isn't terribly important. Starting with Cave Info _ Queen is a 2-level cave with 5 Empress Bulbax in each one. Big surprise! All those levels, Empress Bulbax will fire out Bulbarb Larva. Why exactly did they do that again? On the first floor, the Empress Bulbax drops the Justice Alloy. On the second, they're ugly. Cave Info _ King is only slightly more complicated. The first floor uses 3 Emperor Bulbax and a bunch of bomb rocks, all stuff that you've seen in the game before. One Emperor Bulbax is a whole electric element, and the Justice Alloy just chills on the ground for no reason. Because it's cool. What else would it do? The second sub-level is exactly the same, except it uses a different lighting file. EQ _ Tutorial _ 1 is a single sub-level cave whose defining characteristic is having every treasure as part of the Explorer's Friends series out in the open, where to be collected. It's probably used for testing. Along with those early challenge mode caves, a few more caves are playable at E3 2003. Not E3 2003 again! That place must have been loaded with Pikmin 2! Wish I was there. Anyway, there were 3 caves created specifically to be played there. The first is E3 _ 1. It's a pretty easy cave, it's only 2 syllables long. The second is E3 _ 2. You can probably see where these names are going. It's of the length the last one has stuff for enemies. The third and last one is, you guessed it, E3 _ 3. This one's 5 syllables long, has stuff for enemies. Even ends with a boss. There are about 3 things I'll talk about that are entirely within the realm of Unused cave-related things. Well, then Unused cave things and whatnot. Yeah, those. But I'll talk about this after I'm done with this. Right now we have the 2 longest caves in the game, locking in at 32 and 34 sub-levels. The first cave is the last _ 4. This cave with 32 floors of nothing but enemy testing. I won't narrate these. For one thing, because you're breaking my voice, and for another thing, that's less work for me. One note though. Sometimes the cutting floor does give an image a show, meaning I can't plagiarize the image show you here. But the missing image is only in the case of a sub-level using the same layout file as the last one, meaning we're looking the same. So it kinda makes sense when you think about it. It's a bit disappointing, but it makes sense. Now, you've heard the previous cave info a few times already, but now it's time for the mother of all cave infos, a cave apparently titled Cave Info. Each 34 floors is what seems to be early versions of very different floors from various different caves across the game. Don't believe me? Well, first of all, why wouldn't you? And second of all, take a look. Well, that certainly was something. And for a last something, 2 more caves. Don't worry, they are very short. The first is video_cave_info_metal, which is about to avoid anything that isn't an anode beetle. It's only 1 sub-level long. The other is video_cave_info_sushi. The first level features no enemies and some treasures, and the second has quite a few enemies and only some treasures. Given these caves' file names, it's believed that either for promotional videos or for the quote-unquote attractable cutscenes that play on the title screen. As previously mentioned, after the caves themselves become cave settings, things are supposed to spawn but never do, and things like that. Speaking of which, in Cavern of Chaos level 2, a green glowstone is supposed to spawn. On level 8, 24 bomb marks are supposed to spawn, but only 21 ever will. In Dream Domes level 8, 2 fiddleheads are supposed to spawn. On the second sublevel of Cave of Snarls, 99 green glowstones are supposed to spawn, but the sublevel only have generated a way that allows 28 of them to. On the first level of Breeding Ground, the file states 20 dandelions and 60 markets are supposed to spawn, but only 16 dandelions and exactly 0 markets ever will. On the lowest level of the Sniper Room, 2 armor cannon below following a tier stone are supposed to spawn, but only 1 actually does. The generation file of Merchant's Case level 1 indicate that hallways, branching paths, and dead ends can spawn, but as you hopefully know, the sublevel only generates in one way. All of the plaza, whatever you want to call it, type floors have in the file's ability to generate a forward path cave unit, but none of them have generated a way as to allow it to appear, making it unused. We'll see it later. Sublevel 14 of Dream Dead has the ability to spawn hallways, branching paths, and dead ends, this time for piping cave units. Of course, they never actually do spawn. The 9th level of Dream Den, all the sublevels of Submerged Castle, probably except for the 5th, are supposedly the song that plays the 6th level of Full of Heroes. But in both cases, a different song is hard-coded to play. Speaking of the Submerged Castle, the water can conduct professional noise make on any sub-level. Despite this, the treasure gauge will ignore it. Additionally, every sub-level in the game has the water based timer. Yes, every one. However, most of them are inert. Sub-level 5 of the Submerged Castle has a unique timer setting of 15 seconds, but, as you hopefully know, the water is triggered by a timer on the sub-level. The parameter F017 can spawn 2 randomly placed and connected seesaw blocks. It's not surprising here that there's some unused cave units. Well, I did kind of just mention it. Well, okay, here we go. There are a few units that can hold treasure in a branching path or turn. Here are the 3-way branching path ones. However, some of these unused units look exactly the same as the ones they're based on, so I'll just find an image of those instead. Actually, I already have them, because, well, you know what happened. Here are the 4-way branching path units. And here are the turning units. I kind of wonder why they only come in 3 styles. Where are the snowy ones, for example? Here's that 4-way path unit that I mentioned earlier. These units are duplicates of other units, only differing on the layout.txt file. These files determine where things spawn each cave unit, which I guess is a simplified explanation. This is one part of a bomb puzzle in Submerged Castle, as in the 20-foot sublevel of Cave Info. And finally, whatever the heck this thing is. It's ugly. While technically not confined to caves, there are several unused lighting files. Judging by the file names, there are likely at least most of the unused lighting files were intended for the caves. The 2 major groups, with a few more miscellaneous ones. The first major group is the files prefixed with something that I'm not going to pronounce. However you say it, it translates to Queen. I might be able to say this. Sirohana. Anyway, it translates to white flower. You can probably imagine what this is supposed to be used. I'll leave the rest to the editing. The 8th level Dream Den, both level of the Hot House, on 7 Collector's Room, has a skybox released to VR Box. VR Box, though, is the name of the folder that has the skyboxes in it. Both subs for the Green Hole have this skybox released to F010, which doesn't exist, so the game uses no skybox. VR Box also has a file named Mech, but all poor Mech has name is an empty folder also named Mech. Mech. Also, there's some carrying waypoints outside the Titan Weevils arena. So far, 2 major things have been knocked out, and the lighting is here too. But there's a 3rd pillar, the last of the major things. Who could forget about the treasures? They're a bit complicated, but start with the simplest thing first. The completely unused treasures. Pal_Denji_1 may have been early attempt to localize national high-top batteries. That's what Denji means, by the way. Pal_Denji_1_Pan is basically the same thing. The Pan is probably short of Panasonic, if I had to guess. Here's another Panasonic battery, but now encased in a snow globe or something. Most local items do exist, but all just flat textures. And yes, the file name is misspelled. Speaking of file names, elsewhere is the file name few_C, which translates to increase, so exactly what it would have done is a bit of a mystery. Light_B is going to be a second light-based upgrade, which makes sense. Radar_C is going to be a 3rd radar-based upgrade. The first, Radar_A, is a treasure gauge, or rather put a detector to be more accurate. The second is a 5-band NASDAQ, as found in Radar_B, if you remember. If they couldn't come up with the second radar upgrade, it's even more likely there wouldn't be a 3rd. The design, though, if you back up a couple more feet, squint your eyes, and use your imagination, does somewhat resemble a blank version of the radar as seen on the pause screen. This would be in line for functionality for it, and would even make sense if it was unlocked by a large, signal-saving piece of equipment. Rocket_Pack may have been used for the boot knuckles, but come on, man, it's a missile! That makes about as much sense as raptor talons. Here's map_03. As for 01 and 02, you can probably guess what they are. This seems like the Whistle Wild would unlock the same Wisdom full Awakening wood. It's a bit strange to think about, but shouldn't take too long to get used to. But any semblance of normalcy is lost, where map_04 is realized to exist. So there would be a 5th area of Pikmin 2 is just, well, let's just say that's asinine. Besides, there's only thing I think that implies this, so normalcy is just mildly disturbed. Found only in the PAL folder were these treasures, delivered as the chocolate frost and strawberry frosted donuts. Apparently the early donuts were chocolate. Fun fact, there are 2 correct ways to spell donut. There are also early versions of strawberry and white chocolate truffles. Some treasures aren't early versions. Heck, some of them come with icons. So let's look at those. A vanilla frosted donut, similar design from the ones from earlier. A diamond. A red flower of some kind. Some type of gear-like thing. It reminds me a bit of the SS Dolphin's main engine. This kind of ugly-looking blue yo-yo. Ah yes, this thing. On the other side, it says 144. It resembles the turret from German Panther tank used during World War II. Here's a bottle cap with an icon that looks different, and a tiara. If I quote the coloring floor here, this image may be a bit off. A Japanese GameCube disc for The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, one for Luigi's Mansion, Super Mario Sunshine, and Pikmin. If that were in the game, the universe might have, well, imploded. I'm glad the developers spared humanity the torture of experiencing an imploded universe. While it's not a treasure, it's found in the folders anyway. This text was used to test indirect lighting. Also in the PAL folder, quite a few dummy model textures, or whatever they are. The corresponding models and textures broken into various sizes, although they are consistent. Honestly, I can't make much sense with these things, so the best I can do is show you. These things come in 4 colors, each telling how many sides the corresponding model has along with the size of its name and base texture. I think I know what that means. Anyway, I'll do my best to use Google Translate to help out here. Starting with the blue guys, I have a 6-sided model with a 64x64 model name texture and 32x32 model base texture. I know the texture dimensions are important, but I found the numbers and I'm going to tell you anyway.
Cheese.
The green ones have a 10-sided model with a 64x64 name texture and a 128x128 base texture. The yellow fellas here have a 12-sided model with the first texture dimensions. Their name texture is 120x128 and their base texture is 64x64. The red dudes have a 14-sided model with both the name and base textures being 128x128. After that comes the confusing part. It should be no surprise to say the treasures went through a few different revisions over the years. In fact, it seems to be 4 separate generation treasures, including the following game's treasures. Some treasures were changed completely, others simply redesigned. Some treasures received the final time with the last generation, while some were added until after the first. Some treasures just have icons, while others actually have models. Some treasures were even moved to different files. To say, it's a bit complicated. Much like bullet web classification, there are 2 schools of thought on how to present this information. I never actually got to editing this section of the original video, so I never needed to figure out exactly how to do this. I could try either A, group out the treasures of the same generation together, or B, list each treasure's history separate. I think I'll go with option B. I'm also going to go in order of each treasure hoard number. Unfortunately, the Japanese treasures are the only ones I have to go by, but I'll make it work. This also means it's going to be hard for me to comment on these things, but I doubt you're too disappointed about that. If you remember way back when I was talking about pre-release stuff, I said about a certain blue star ring with a round base that you see it later. Well, that later is now. Sure, I've only got the icon, but it's here. Now I just gotta remember all these episodes I can talk about later. I hope you had a nice break, because you're going to get another one. Pikmin 2 has a good amount of unused music. Instead of talking, I'll just leave on-screen notes. So go on! Go on! You've got some unused music to listen to. Somewhat on the topic of unused music is unused configuration file that hosts an early list of the game's sequence music. It's missing quite a few songs and also the volume of 40. Whatever that means. The file game uses differing volumes. Ignoring any unused treasures, this game has 3 unused models. The first one here is UFO. It's a dolphin, but it's missing quite a few details. The missing guard satellite, and its elevator and Geiger counter are the most obvious. Speaking of obvious, I'm not going to say it. It even has one animation, which follows the most logical parts of the ship moving. And this time, it's not sarcasm. Found in 2 places in the files this early or test model for the seesaw blocks, called Down Floor. It has 3 animations, one called On, probably for Pikmin being thrown onto it, one called Down, which does just that, and one called Wait, where it does... wait for it. Nothing. This is an unused Oliver model. Barring the obvious lighting and texture issue and the funky animations, looks about the same to me, but I can't secure the Pikmin 2 Oliver model to memory. But it does have the long missing antenna ball, so that's something. On a similar subject are graphics, of which this game has plenty. First up here is Title. It's Pikmin but in Japanese and in a very shiny blue font, and it's missing the 2. Then there's Title 2, which seems to apply to Pikmin 2 since sponsored by the Disney Channel. My best guess to where these would have been used is the GameCube's game start screen, as well it's the game's title. It's even called Title. Here's the textures related to a map editor. There's a chance there's no map editor in the game though. That'd be pretty cool. Well, there could be as far as I know, but I don't think it's likely. These textures knows mapcode_text. These seem to be for most of the terrain types found in the overworld. The single Japanese character means whole, according to Google Translate. Root Imgur seems to be textured relating to managing the Pikmin's roots. Pikmin 2 has 2 unused .blow files. .blow files is the file type used by Nintendo, but I can tell they control 2-dimensional stuff, specifically sprites. It seems to be this file control the HUD elements. Pikmin Super Mario Sunshine also use .lo files. Pikmin 2, though, actually is the most updated version of these files, if the name's anything to go by. But Pikmin 2 is the Screen Below 02 type, the Unused one is the Screen Below 01 type, which is also used by Super Mario Sunshine. But on to the actual things themselves. The first one is known as Test, and likely only ever served for that purpose. It also, for some reason, features 2 sprites from 1983 Namco arcade game, Mappy. I'll assume these were procured legally. The other is Key Edit. It's very simple. These 2 textures may or may not be associated with it. This here may be a mock-up of an early world map. The top is taken up by kind of labeled number of recovered treasures. The D count is the top right with an uncapitalized D. It's sure been a while since we've seen that. The top up on the left reads Land of Hope, which is similar to Whistle Wild's Japanese name Land of Promise. 4 caves listed, but they have the exact same name, Absolute Worst Cave. The options labeled with the X and Y buttons for the Piklopedia and Treasure Hoard, or the Treasure Encyclopedia as is known here, respectively. This is a missing character graphic used the game needs to use the character the game's font doesn't support. It translates to error. Well, technically not unused, I suppose it's kind of interesting. The names of the areas seen with the loading screen and for the different categories in today's report have wispy effects added to them. Actually, these effects, for the most part, use different graphics. This Valley Repose graphic is used in introducing today's report. This graphic translates today's result. In Japan, though, it's today's report. It's used in the Awakening Woods loading screen. This new Challenge graphic is used in the Perplexing Pool and Wistful Wilds loading screens. This is an 80 pixel wide Piklopedia icon for the Fire Bulb Blacks. The reason I mention this size is because icons that wide only used by bosses. Interestingly, there's a Game Over graphic. It makes me wonder how someone could have actually gotten a Game Over. A mystery for the ages. This is a placeholder icon for the Piklopedia. You could also say that Pikmin 2 predicted the E-meme. This little gemstone is Techie_Carcass. Apparently this would have been used in the cave results. Today's report screens represent how much money you got for enemy corpses. Even though I can't remember exactly what the font icon looks like, it looks very similar to say the least. I also found this on the Pikmin Wiki. No, not Wikipedia, the Pikmin Wiki. You know, the one with Tyrone? So I'm a bit dubious, let's say. There are 3 Unused roulette icons to play a battle. There's one for Fire Cost Beetle depending on what team you're playing on, one for Tenda Beetle, and one for a Spotty Bullbear. Now that's mean. A duplicate of the Beetle icon also exists. Speaking of which, both the Glow Stem and Queen Candy Pop button have duplicate Piklopedia icons. This is an unused card bag texture. I could only imagine what it would have been used for. This here is a small text used on the Water Wraith. The one that's appearance of VRFrame buffer shaders, whatever those are, but whatever it means, this texture just can't be seen. This is some sort of early icon for the ship. I don't know if there are any words to describe what this looks like, but unfinished and ugly come to mind. In reality, though, it only appears to be missing the colors and finer details. This is a smoke texture. There are even some unused particle effects. This Elmer version of the particle effects emitted down from Louis' antenna when whistling. Surprise, also a Louis version! There's some unused cutscenes, all featuring unused music and text you've already seen. But now you can see them all put together. Isn't that cool? To start with the unused so-called onion boot cutscenes. The reason the text block closes itself is because the game points message doesn't exist. The game is just like, "No, mate," and immediately closes it. The other cutscenes don't have this problem. The reason the alien is placed here is because he's moved here on purpose. The counter coordinates of the cutscene aren't specified, the game defaults to coordinates 000. The alien is moved to actually be seen. The bloated onion is completely unremarkable. So next up is the Onion's camera tutorial cutscene. quote-unquote cutscene called Sound Test. It's kind of funny looking. I guess for lack of any real place to put this, is this. An unused fourth page of the pause screen explaining the controls much in the original game. However, what you're seeing here is a mock-up. None of the text actually exists, so that's just an assumption. There also exists an unused feature letting you turn to your last save, again like the first game. This only would make saving the game a lot easier. The text option is ways further down from the bottom of the menu, and if it's selected, will leave the menu play to your unique confirmation menu. It's actually fully functional. Slightly related is another unused function the first game had. This is what I think radar_C unlocked. Essentially, the whimsical radar again. It's fully functional as well, even use red icons or treasures that are part of the Explorer's Friend series. Even less related is another unused function, or would it be mechanic in this case, that was also in the first game. The ability to throw Pikmin higher by holding them longer. Technically, those mechanic also went unused in the first game. There, it 100% works. The game actually runs the code while playing, but the minimum and maximum values are exactly the same, making it redundant. In Pikmin 2, though the values exist, but the ability to run the function does not. Pikmin 2 also has redundancies like this as well, but get to them eventually. Speaking of, there's plenty more unused logic in the likes. For example, it's game the content's fixed, but every other game is random contents, and they can spawn random 1 of 5 pellets. Somewhat similarly, no object use the specification value of 3, which is this object will have 90% chance to spawn nectar when destroyed, along with 5% chance of either spray. Also speaking of this time petrification, here's another redundancy. Hitting petrified enemy with another bitter spell multiplies petrification duration, but it's multiplied by 1. Technically used, but never utilized. The other redundancy is this. An unused feature that randomizes the size of unknown specialists from between 2 values. As you can probably guess though, both minimum and maximum values are exactly the same, in this case 1. Speaking of spectralids though, they have 200 health. For reference, red bulbwebs have 750. Honeywhips though, have a staggering 99,999 health, although they are programmed to die in one hit just like spectralids. Candy Pop Buds though also have the same insane health amount. Somebody really didn't want those things to die. I think I'm running out of transition, so let's just go somewhat rapid fire. Entering the emergence cave on day 1 means the option to give up and escape is grayed out. It seems to me that you actually intend to go there on day 1. I forgot, there's actually one more redundancy. Gas pipes, much like fire geysers, can turn off periodically. However, the gas pipe's off duration is, well, you can figure it out. Its on duration is 3 seconds. The bitty long leg is supposed to drop 25 unarmed spectralids when killed if it doesn't have any treasure. The issue is though that unarmed spectralids, or is it the bitty long legs, isn't on the list of enemies that spawn other enemies. Thus, no unmarked from the beady. The image files with the high scores indicate that at one point the top 5 scores would have been kept instead of the top 3, again like the first game. Honeywhips, Bullet Cannon Beetles, and Nectar Rocks have to have their damage taken from purple landing on it set to 10, different from the standard 50. Eggs, Bomb Rocks, Honeywhips, and Bullet Cannon Beetles have the 10-second stun time, different from the standard 5. Is interesting though the bottom of a stun time because, well, why don't you try and find out? Honeywhips, Bullet Cannon Beetles, Nectar Rock stuff, and the Water-based rolls have a 5% stun chance. Some things like the Nectar Rock stuff are physically unable to be stunned because they aren't enemies. Both the Water-based and rolls have a whopping stun time of 60 seconds. The Bullet Blacks have a stun time of 10 seconds. Fire Guys and Gas Pipe Electrical Wise have a stun time of 5 seconds. The Matite, Valentine Weevil, Toy Blister, Raging Blister, Beetle Long Legs, Mant Legs, Raging Long Legs, and Titan Weevil all have a 5-second stun time. Some enemies have unused seed values should they be delivered to an onion. The Giant Bubba gives 4 seeds, the 4 non-volunteered Weevils and Animal Beetle give 5, the Bubba Central Community give 8, Bulbman give 10, the Play Sacred and Raging Blues give 25, and the Impel Ball Blacks, Empress Ball Blacks, and Sacred Cropster give 30. We do know the Raging Blister was above ground at one point, so having seed value makes sense, but it's curious that Bulbman have one. Does that mean Bulbman above ground? Not necessarily. It could be that Bulbman were intended for the 2-player battle mode. Some enemies like Bird Bugs and Cranial Rigid Bugs can only be delivered to an onion in this mode. Only one instance the reverse exists though, as seen in the Piclopedia reference which players have unused Poke value of 1. But because of the existence of Rushing Spiderwort cave music, this is more than likely intended to be seen, at least at one point. The Electrical Wise ability to, in addition to electrocute, cause Pikmin to be set ablaze, and also drown. This will also cause them to change color, no image provided, I am very sad, and never turn off. To trigger this, either red or blue Pikmin needs to attack it. It makes sense that this was intended for 2-player battle. Pellets, negative both normal and spray variety, and randomly colored Pikmin sprouts can be spawned, but they, well, never are. Shocker. This is actually used in new tests, which I'll get to eventually, but because that's never used, we end up back at square one. A pretty well-known piece of Pikmin 2 unused content is the Pikmin carrots as Pikmin. They don't really animate, they also have a lift on the head with butter flour, they glow green with idle, make normal Pikmin sounds, and don't have any special abilities. They get skipped over from calculating the closest Pikmin and are least likely to die. They also, rather unsurprisingly, have no standby Pikmin icon. The reason for this is the easier class for the Pikmin carrots as Pikmin to avoid having new behaviors for the enemies, which only be used in Piclopedia. Although exactly why the Pikmin carrots give us complete abilities is a mystery, they're almost a completely functional Pikmin type. Surely they need all of that stuff to work correctly. This is a wireframe image for what seems to be the Piclopedia version of the Plexing Pool. It's actually partially used in Piclopedia/Treasure Hoard as a decoration, although it's going to be hard to compare and contrast, mostly contrast, the wireframe pool and the Piclopedia pool and the Perplexing Pool. You do know the Piclopedia version's area seem to be based on earlier versions of their respective areas, right? Well, the wireframe pool seems to be even earlier. In fact, with this version, the Pikmin pool had more connection to Distant Spring than the final, so the Plexing pool must have gone through heavier revisions. That has no bearing to what I'm talking about, I just want to say it anyway. Anyway, let's first discuss the southern section. The start of the show is a large circular area which powered both the wireframe Pikmin pools. Given this more likely isn't the landing site, my best guess is an arena for the being long legs. Although there seem to be natural ramps, they may need to build a bridge. The wireframe pool seems missing in the northern standing section next to the circular arena, but it's really hard to tell thanks to lack of pixels, lack of detail effects, and an overhead view making the vertical walls look like a line, that is, no different from anything else. The wireframe pool in general seems missing the metal wooden structures that's sticking under the ground. The wireframe pool is also missing the hump at the very bottom that become a barrier to block off the water from the unrepaired island from the water that gets in the shower room. Or maybe it just got moved. Speaking of the shower room, this area doesn't seem to exist. The sunny area next to it does, but not the house structure. So close to those super high concentration of polygons, which reminds me of the small, just barely on-screen island from one of the pre-release images. The getting yellow Pikmin with the shower room puzzle seems to be intact, and off the left of it is a dense, fidget spinner-like pattern. This remember the landing site in the distant spring. This similarly exists to Pikmin pool, and just barely in the perplexing pool. I'm not sure why so many polygons are dedicated to it though. The majority of the northern, specifically northwestern section, is basically impossible to make out. It's possible with tree roots, much like other versions, and tree roots are very polygon dense. Either that small variations in the land. Probably both. The northernmost section with all the squares seems to be intact with the of the Pikmin pool and distant spring, until the change of the final perplexing pool. I can see the concrete block, I can see the sand island thing, it all seems to be there. Now we have new test. If you for some reason don't know what it is, it's a test map. So let's break it down. The place is littered with ramps and distance markers. I think at the bottom is the same text on the side of the ramps. I'm not really sure what it's there for. Maybe it's for testing how fast the leaders move? Both on the left and top are slopes labeled with their angle. The sun on the left is probably used to test things with various slope angles. The sun on the top is water, is likely used to test the same thing, but underwater. At the bottom of each slope, a blue wine pellet can be found. The large display on the right could have been used to test how far Pikmin land when thrown from a ledge. Use the same subtexture at the ramp at the very bottom, and every platform above gets accessibly shorter. The top area looks confusing, but it's actually a footstep sound effect test area. Looking at the texture directly makes it much easier to see what it says. And as these images can attest, this area is also littered with objects. Of course, this isn't surprising. This is a test area. According to the radar, this area's name is Test Area 8394_03, which seems awfully familiar. The texture used is a white rectangle. For some reason, it's simple for areas that exist, but its biggest change is the removal of the footstep sound effect area. Pikmin 2 actually some unused enemies. What's well known about them comes to the form of their enemy IDs. There are 4, ID 39, 64, 82, and 100. Attempting to spawn them will crash the game. ID 39 will spawn a new test in the Awakening Wood. A comment calls it, and I'm very likely to butcher this, Fufuki Mushi. Very similar to the Nintendo's internal name, which is Fufuki. I apologize to all Japanese speakers out there. All that seems to be known about ID 64 is its ID. ID 82 is called Palm. Palm uses a suffix for the names of the different candy pop buds, so it's likely that Palm was a template. ID 100 is much the same, having the name Umimushi Base. Umimushi is named the Ranging Bloister, and Umimushi Blind's name of the Toady Bloister. Umimushi Base was likely just that. The preview image for Carpet Plane shows an unbathed red marble in an alcove. If you know anything about two-player battle, you know this is completely wrong at every conceivable level. Unrelated, this brings us something I started talking about a long time ago. Purple Pikmin. Purple Pikmin referred to internally as Black Pikmin, so it's likely that at one point they were actually colored black. Need more evidence? I've got more evidence. The valid candy pop bud's internal name is Black Palm. Need more evidence? Think about this. White Pikmin are small and fast, and purple Pikmin are large and slow. Wouldn't it make more sense if they were opposites in color as well? That begs the question, why did Nintendo change it? It was probably just a stylistical choice. After all, purple is much nicer color to look at than black. Or it could be that purple Pikmin are always purple and just simply called Black Pikmin. I don't really have any evidence to support that though. But the name of the fan that plays when you use the bitter spray on enemy for the first time calls the bitter spray black, so maybe the game was just confusing the colors. But in the end, we don't need to worry about why things change because of the bigger topic at hand, your life after this video. You're going to need to figure it out soon because we are officially done with Pikmin 2, pre-release, and unused content. It's certainly been a wild ride that I've taken one too many times, but I did write something every day without missing one, even though I wanted to. Hence why it's taken me 31 days to get this point. Sure, it's quite a bit longer than the original one, but what are you gonna do? So thank you for sticking till the end. And I'll admit, I think I'm gonna think about Pikmin 2 for, I don't know, at least about 3 minutes.